Hey.
Hello.
Okay, I'm here with Get Right. I'm going to do one of my reflections interviews. It's going to be my first CS one in the series. I've only done League of Legends at the moment. So to start off with, in your career, we obviously need to start in 1.6. But I've done interviews with you in the past, so we've got like all the basics down. So I actually want to start somewhere, which is this. When you think of your career, for most of the time I was in 1.6, we always thought of you as like a fnatic player. Because you were in Fnatic 2009, 2010. It seemed like, oh, Get Right's always going to be in Fnatic. Like, you know, like it always looked like Forrest would be. How could Forrest ever be not in Fnatic? You know, he'd been in for 5 years. When you were in it in 2009 and 2010, still some good results. Did you actually think like, oh, this is probably a team I'll always be in? Like, I'll always be a Fnatic player? What were you thinking at the time?
When I joined first Fnatic, there was like a feeling inside of me that's saying that I'm gonna probably stay in Fnatic for a long, long time. But after things got complicated by end of 2010 and somehow Forrest stood by my side after even being on extension for 5 years, we end up leaving Fnatic for SK Gaming back then.
When that scenario happened, okay, like there's been a million times it's been discussed. Like I've discussed it with Carl a million times, like the podcast and stuff. They make it sound like some people in the public who haven't looked into much of the story and they've just heard one person's point of view actually think that like Get Right tried to kick Khan out of Fnatic or something like that, you know, or that Get Right and Forrest were like, oh, Khan and DSN are too bad, they have to retire. Like from your side, what would you just explain as the simple version? Like what was the problem, or what had to change for either you to stay in Fnatic or you to leave? What do you think it was?
I think back in then, if I can just go back in time, just understand what's happened back then. The thing was that everyone wants to stay in Fnatic in a way, but we felt that a roster change was needed. And what was discussion back then with Patrick, Harley, Rasmus, me and Patrick, we'd pretty much stay there. I don't think people need to really know what happened back then. Okay. And even Matthew knows about it as well. And I think pretty much that's where it's gonna be stand. And I think that's something between us, and we're still good friends afterwards, and Karn is still in Fnatic and a manager, and he's still a good friend of mine and so on. So I don't really understand when people are saying that was my evil plan or something to kick him out. I think it's more to it than actually it sounds when people are discussing it, and that's what I want to take a stand and just say there's nothing that you should know about and so on, and that's what happened between us, not anyone outside of it.
On this topic though, right, since you were such a good player in 1.6 and now in CSGO, most people think you're the best, it's going to be hard to find anything that anyone would criticize you for, especially like a teammate, because if you're like carrying the game and you have the most kills, how are they going to criticize you? Okay. But I found something that people criticized you for in the past, which was that some teammates of yours told me that like, I'll make it a general topic, okay? In the latter days of 1.6, we had all these statistics, okay? We had like HLTV.org, and you could check, well, how many kills did I get that game? How many deaths did I have? All this sort of stuff. But you could check it like right after the game, before you play your next game. Whereas in the old school days, like nothing like that even existed, you know? You could only know by the scoreboard what you were doing. Mm. And so I've heard that in the latter days, nearly all players after the game would like go on HLTV.org and they'd check, oh, how did I do in that game and stuff. And so I've heard someone who was in your career criticize you and say like, oh, they thought that you like worried about that too much. And so they didn't say you did this all the time, but they sometimes wondered, okay, if Get Right had a game where like we won, but like he had a really bad score, or like we lost and his score was just like okay, they wondered, did he ever check the site and see that and then think like next game like, oh, I should play like more safe so I get more kills? Or is this an alien concept to you? I know some players do it, so what do you think of this topic?
Maybe I did it back in time, I don't know. I just know by my experience now and what I can understand from my point of view right now is that I know a lot of players that I play with do actually did exactly like that, but I'm not that guy, because I got learned by another Swedish player before I even become really good, okay, that after you play a bad game or whatever, you are not supposed to even look at public side and read the comments or stats or whatever and so on. It's just that you have to actually rethink about your game and just think it like this. Next one you're gonna do better. You don't need to really change your play style or something like that. And I think why people are targeting me so easily is mostly because of the role I'm being given from people and so on, and I guess that's where I have to take a stand and just say this is how I play, and that's how my teammates actually been giving to me. It's nothing that I'm being forced to actually tell my teammates, yeah, I'm gonna be playing like this and that and so on, and that's why I want to be reflected like a star or whatever, you know. It's what they had told me, and I can just take it from example when we started to join, or when we joined SK Gaming with Rob and FaZe and Alan in the beginning, and we had a tactical meeting and just saying like how we should prepare and how we should set up and, you know, the usual things. Whether this was actually first meeting over everyone that we had, and Robin, I just remember Robin say that like this, and like Chris, or actually my nickname Totte in Swedish, and he was saying pretty much you're gonna be the son of a bitch to anyone, and I was like, what do you mean? Yeah, you're just gonna be lurking around, just making everyone fucking hate you even more or something like that, and just be annoyed that you're still alive after so many rounds, and that's your purpose in the game. And for our team, just be a annoying little kitten that screams after every round we win. And after that, I'm like, okay, he gave me the role, and he gave me what I'm still playing today and so on, and my team in CSGO has been the same, and I guess that's why it's so easy to actually attack me, because that's how my role is built up, mostly because the guys has been given to me.
Because the thing is, that sort of role is usually never done by like a star player. In fact, usually it's not done. It's not like it's done by a bad player either. Usually, when you think of like lurkers, you think of someone like Storm from the old EG and complexity stuff. So they're sort of like in the middle, okay, and that's part of why they play that role. Is like they're very good sense for that, but maybe their mad skills wouldn't be the same if they went like directly 1-on-1 initially with someone. But you've like made that role really famous now, and now everyone thinks of that as like, well, if you're like the best CS:GO player, you're like the best of that role as well. Like when he told you that role, like this is going to be your set role in SK, had you already played a little bit like that in the past? Was that like the first time you were doing it? Did you have like a natural, when you tried it, were you like, this just fits, like this is what I'm supposed to do?
I just think that I was kind of always like that. I think I had pretty much my own will before when I played in Fnatic, because I remember my playing style was differently in the beginning at least, and then it changed a bit. I don't know exactly why it changed or something. I just think that I was going back to my roots or something like that, because I think I always been playing like that. It's nothing that I've been, you know, going back and forth or so. And so I think that's why it's been so natural for me to do it, is mostly because I've always done that pretty much, except for in the beginning for Fnatic, for example. But I guess just because the people complain or, you know, give comments about it, especially old teammates, I just think that they're just, I don't want to give them some flame or something, but I just understand they kind of feel like that I've been, you know, angry on them or giving some bad comments, and I can understand them and so on in some ways, but I don't really understand the way I'm still coming back to this question, because we're in 2014 and I guess some of those players actually 32 are not even playing anymore, and why should they even care about this still? Because I mean, if they would care so much, why aren't they still playing, I guess?
Sure. When you play that role, the reason why I say usually like star players don't play it is because if I think generally about CS, in general, okay, the really skilled players almost like to gamble more, okay? They like to take fights because they think I'm going to win the fight, okay? So they actually like to take the fight like on their terms, like I want to fight now. Whereas in general, the people who take like very positional fights, or they try to like always have the better angle, tended to be the weaker players, because they wouldn't be able to win otherwise. They'd get owned if they went in the one-on-one straight up fight. And so even if I think of some of your teammates, okay, if I ever saw Gux in a 1v1 and he was behind a box, he's always going to peek that box or like tap over the box. He's never going to just sit behind the box the whole time and wait for the guy to come get him. He's going to like want to see that guy, and then he's going, oh, I'm going to kill him now. So what's interesting about your style is like you try to combine like what the bad player would do, but the smart player, with like the skilled player in theory. Was that always the way you were as well? You never were someone who was just like very aggressive, or you wanted to fight all the time? You were more of like a thinking player? Or did that develop over time? What do you think?
I think I already answered this question in some old interview with you, or someone else. It doesn't really matter though. It's that I personally think me of a guy who actually thinks a lot when you're inside of a game, and okay. I think that I need, at least when I think about it, I need some space some kind to actually understand what's going on in middle of the round and trying to figure out where enemies are and so on. And I don't feel like that I want to actually kill the guy just basically by skill. I just want to pretty much think out and like say I brained you out, or think you out where you are, and not fool him or something. Just that I think it's more of a safer choice instead of going by okay, just challenge, and if I die I just die. But if I die, it could actually be meaning the game are lost, or it can actually be like we're losing 4 rounds in a row. Instead, I just want to take it chill and understand, if I kill this guy, what happens then? Could we actually get 3 rounds extra for free? Or does this mean that actually the game's going to be easier for us, or it's going to be tougher or something? I just want it to be, for me personally, advantages instead of a disadvantage, to just challenge them one by one, or 1-on-2, or for example. But I feel still it's just normal for me. It's nothing else. It's that I want to think them out, nothing else.
So when you say you don't just want to like outskill them, or you think of yourself as a tactical player, I've seen lots of interviews with you where you try to make it sound like, oh, I'm not the best player, like I'm not the most skilled, there's other people more skilled than me. But when I've seen you play, like your skill level is, if not the highest, then maybe like consistently, it's as high or higher than anyone I've seen, okay? So when I think in 1.6, like you're saying there, you don't want to outskill them. I remember a famous round in the ESWC final versus Na'Vi, where you won this 1v3 in overtime, and basically there was almost no positioning in it. You just won the round by like headshot one guy, headshot another guy, headshot the third. So it was like a very high skill round. Even if you say all that, okay, and you want to like give your teammates credit, like, no, I'm not the most skilled, like everyone's really good, you must know deep down, like your skill level can be as high as anyone, or you can have a very high consistent level. How do you think of yourself in that sense? That's right, yeah.
I still think, like I was saying before, I don't think I'm the best player. I don't think I'm complete player either. I think I still have a lot of things to work on, and I don't think that's involves in the game. It involves still with my emotions and like nervous or whatever my sickness is doing to me and so on. I still in that level. And for example, I think that if we compare from 1.6, I think still there's like Forrest or Gux or Neo or Markelov, Edward, you can just name drop and Trace or whatever. They are still better player back then, and some still are. For example, Forrest and Neo is becoming even better and better by the day in CSGO, and the new players in very Titan and so on. There's still so many good players out there that I think personally are better than me, but people are still thinking so highly of me, and I'm really glad for it. But I'm still fighting for myself, inside of myself, saying like I'm good, but I'm not that good in a way. And I guess that's my problem, and that's something I need to learn by understanding that people are saying I'm that good, and I need to understand that I am actually that good, but I don't still think that's the main issue for me. And I will still always, even though when I quit and so on, always saying that someone else was better than me and so on, and I will probably always think like that. And like Forrest, I will always think that he's better than me.
Okay, but even if you say that, like this role we were just talking about that you do, one of the reasons why I always thought this role really suits you is because when I remember talking to you in 1.6, you were always the person who, if the team lost the game, then almost no matter what the circumstances were, you were always like thinking like, oh, if I'd have just done something on that one round, like it's always like me, like if I'd have done that round, or if I'd have like killed that guy earlier, he wouldn't have got to my teammates. Like I could have changed the game, okay? And so in that role, in theory, you get a lot of responsibility. Like since you're going to be in a lot of 1v1s, you can actually potentially, if you do it smart, you could make up for a mistake in the game earlier, or you could just win the game outright. Yeah. Is that part of why you like to do the role?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I still think about in that area still, like for example, if I kill that guy, if I didn't do that mistake, it could be a different outcome. Or if I just would kill one more instead of him getting to my teammate, I will probably fix so the round was won by my teammate or myself and so on. And I still think in that sentence or subject or topic or whatever you say about it, and I think that's still necessary. And I feel that that's like my biggest, like what do you say, I forgot the word for it, but like that's my main purpose to doing a game is like if someone responsibility, if someone really like not fuck up the round, it falls down to me. Like he understands that what he did wrong, and like they hope that I'm still alive or someone else, and understand that he did wrong, but he's the guy. The next guy is gonna supposed to correct him, you know, and just fix it and win it, and then he's gonna understand. Yeah, we won the round. That's good. Now I understand I did wrong and so on, but I need to focus on the next round instead. And that's I'm feel still like what happened in 1.6, and now is that's my purpose in the game for my team, is that if someone fails or two fails, they're gonna always look at me and say like, fix our problem, we're gonna fix it next time, or double it for you next time. And it still feels like that.
When I watched part of the NIP documentary, the one leading up to DreamHack, I think it was Fiflaren was like complaining. He was saying like, oh, Geralt is like a perfectionist. Like nothing is good enough for him. He's always complaining. Like even if things are going well, he's like figuring out a way like, oh, that wasn't perfect. Is he right?
Yeah, he's right. There's no really sacred to it, and I think I'm still looking to it always, and that's why it also reflects me as a human being, and like in real life and so on. Like I could be happy, and I hope that people understand that when I'm happy they should be fine with it, instead of like going deeper to it, because then I get like, oh yeah, it wasn't maybe that good, or it was, and then I start reflecting and so on. Like, and I still think that always happening games, when we win games, I always think about if I did something better, or we lose a game, if I did that, and so on. I will always reflect it and like always wanted to make it even better than it actually was. So yes, that's to your answer. Yes, it's still, I'm a perfectionist, or what do you call it?
Because the reason I ask is because I sometimes like I would actually worry about you in 1.6, because I've remembered games where I always think in team sports, you can't judge a player only if his team won or lost the game, because obviously it's possible for you to win the game, but maybe you didn't do very good at your role that game. Meanwhile, you could have an amazing game. Like I think of the famous examples like Trace and MTW. Sometimes he played amazing games, but they lost. So I don't blame him and go, oh, you weren't good enough. I go like, you played amazing. Maybe something didn't work in the team, or you didn't have a good enough teammate, whatever it was. But I would expect him to be able to be like happy, like, oh yeah, I played well. But I've seen games where I saw in the server you played really, really well, but your team lost. And so kind of like I was talking before, like where you were thinking, oh, there was like a round I could have done differently. It sounded like unless your team won and you played well, you would always be like a little bit unhappy or a little bit depressed. Are you really like that every time? Like if you just win the tournament, you feel okay, right?
If we just win a tournament, I would be happy in the end. I wouldn't really reflect over the games or whatever and so on in a way. If we just stand there on the big stage or whatever with a winning check or something like that, I would be happy with the result in the end.
But if you played amazingly, you played the best game of your life, but your team lost, can you still be okay with that? Will you be fine with it in time?
We lost the tournament. Why should I be happy?
Well, it can't always be Get Right's fault if you win or lose.
No, but still, it's like I would trade my... If I play like you were saying, like I'm really, really amazing game, we just lose it by 16-14, for example, I would trade it any given day of the week if I played worse, but we won the game. Any day of the week, I would trade that.
Because one of the reasons why it's an interesting topic is because when I describe it like that, it might sound bad, like, oh, if you can't even be happy if you played well and you lost, then like, oh, how are you going to enjoy life? But I always thought that's one of the reasons why you were really good, because, okay, we'll talk about this later, but one of the things is you famously play with someone who's like the opposite of that. Like Forrest could win the whole tournament, yeah, or even do badly, and then it's still, that almost sometimes doesn't factor, and sometimes he might still be like, oh, I'm going to take a week off, like I'm going to just practice normal amounts, and then later on he might get really into it and he might practice for a whole month or whatever. But it's always up and down with him, okay, even though he's so good at the game. And so it seems like he's not someone who's like tortured by like losses in the same way, or if he is, it doesn't make him want to practice super hard, okay. Whereas it always seemed like, you remind me of like Korean StarCraft players, okay. There's like a famous thing with them where part of the reason they practice so much, okay, is their mentality goes like this: if they lose the tournament, then they think, well, I've lost, like I have to get on top, so I have to practice lots now. Yeah. And so you think, okay, that makes sense. But then if they win the tournament, they go, well, I'm on top now, I have to practice lots, I have to stay on top. So it's like, well, in that case, you'll be practicing all the time, no matter what. And they're like, well, yeah, because that's like just their mentality. But most people aren't like that. Even in CS, if they win, they take a little time off. If they lose, they maybe take some time off and then they get back into it. When you lose games, when you do all this stuff, what keeps you motivated to like always keep practicing all the time? Do you really just practice all the time?
I think I've slowed down with that to say that I'm practicing all the time, and I think I'm understanding when I'm being that young guy saying why are the old guys, if you can say, like stop training and whatever and so on. But I start to understand why they did it, and I guess that's because they want to save the motivation for the game. I see like they still love to play the game and so on. But now recently, when we had struggled a little bit and so on, I actually started to feel like I was doing like 4 years or 5 years ago, that I just wanted to train all the time. And it feels good to actually feel that again. And it could be sound cocky and so on to say that I feel that good again, but some players, it's with whatever sport you do, if you're playing well and you're training all the time for many years in a row, eventually it doesn't mean like in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, it could be longer or a shorter period of time. You're always going to get like, oh, I'm back, again to play this game or, this football or whatever, and do it over and over again. And sometimes you need some break or something, and that's perfectly understandable. And for me, I found that like last year or something, I think that was first time in 5 or 6 or 7 years that I actually had a vacation, like a real one. Like if I could take it compared to like when we had vacations before, like when I say vacation, people are gonna be, yeah, but you only play video games. But when you really have to understand that most of the computer games that are actually playing the game are training like I was doing before. And for example, just take the fnatic guys, the new guys, they're training all the time. And for me, that's older than them, I have to also train all the time to actually even be equal to them. And Titan are the same, they're training all the time. And when going back to the vacation things, like when you have a vacation, at least in gaming, you have like 1 week or 2 weeks, for example, and you just have the will to do pretty much nothing, or you're free to do whatever you want to. And some players are like, okay, I'm gonna relax and don't focus about that game and just play some World of Warcraft or something else, or go on vacation with a girlfriend or something else, But me personally, when every other years, I've always been like that. Okay, I have vacation. That's good, because now I can play all the online tournaments, all the cups with the mixes and play with other people, or go back to my demos that I've been looking before on, or find new ones and, go over what they did wrong and good or something, I always go back to those vacation. That's been my, new motivation to actually find new things in the game, and always like, okay, this is actually how I counter this player and so on. But last year, that was like the first time I ever actually took a vacation for real. And to be honest, and I think my girlfriend still laughs about this when she's kind of seeing the interviews, like, I think she understood that after like 3 or 4 days, I was like, I just want to go back and play a little bit. And that was the first time in 6 or 7 or 5 years I'd never had a vacation, and it feels awkward and weird to actually say this, but I wanted to go back to play some more, do my usual things,
Right. Well, when I think of like the past, when I was describing before, when you used to always like practice lots if you lost, or if you were like trying to get to the top, you were one of the people where I know a lot of famous players didn't really like to play CSDM. They only did it to warm up. Okay, they'd play like 10 minutes before the game just to like get their reflexes warmed up or whatever. And some people, I know even some pros who used to tell me like, oh, it doesn't even help. Like it only warms you up. It can't like train your aim or whatever. But I know you used to like play it all the time, like do like 2 hours of it, or even do it like if I play bad, then I'll do like an extra hour just to like make sure I'm really good next time. Do you still have that sort of practice? Is still that sort of mindset?
I don't think I'm spending that many hours that I did before, but I'm coming back to it, and I feel like I still think it's so much fun to actually play the deathmatch, even though it's kind of boring to walk around on Dust 2, for example. That's usually the map you're playing on, deathmatch, but it's fun again somehow, because it's a new game as well, so why not? And I think when people are saying that you only do it because you warm up and so on, I can understand in some sort of subject or sentence in there, but I don't think that's the whole truth to it. Because if you play, for example, with, let's say, 2 hours, of course you're gonna be spraying all the time in the end. You're gonna just be like that. But me as a personal player, I've always been like that guy. I've always sprays, always been like that playing style. That's the perfect training for me, because then I'm gonna be trying, I'm training up my level for distance and short distance or close distance and so on. For me, it's that's the perfect training in some sentence, but like playing a gather or whatever, it would be actually be better, because then you're just 5-on-5 for a server and so on, and that you can play, and that's more fun in the end. But playing deathmatch for me for 2 hours would be the perfect training in the end, at least.
Whenever we do the podcast and we talk about CSGO, even now after so much time, when people have gotten so good at it, in general, when I watch people, if I just got like the top 50 pros and I took like number 29 and 30 out of the top pros and I watched them spray in a real game, oftentimes it still looks quite bad in CSGO compared to 1.6, where in 1.6 even like the 80th best guy, his spray's gonna look really good by the end of 1.6. So most of them, it still doesn't look that good. Like it looks like, oh, it's hard to control the spray or something. But when I watch you spray, there's even a joke that Lurper's told me, which he was only half joking. He said like he thinks Get Right is the only one who really knows how to spray. Because your spray looks more like the 1.6 spray, like it's really accurate and you can get more people and stuff. Was it just easy to spray in CSGO? Why is it so difficult, do you think, for everyone else? Like, do you notice a difference when you play?
Yeah, and I think it's a big difference to playing 1.6 in CSGO with at least spraying wise. I mean, tapping and bursting could be similar in some sentence, but it's a completely different story in spraying area. And I think when we talked about last time about training deathmatch over and over again, and that's what I think is the perfect answer for it. If you want to really get a steady spray, if you can say it like that, deathmatch is the way to go pretty much, and you have to waste many hours to just even get a similar to perfect or whatever. Even though in my world there's never someone called perfect, but still it's close enough, you know. And I still think in some sense my spray isn't good enough, and there's other players that actually are better in that areas, but I still think in some sense as well that my sprays are fine, but could be better at least.
So who has the best? Which people come to mind as like they have the really sick spray in CS:GO?
I think actually my teammate Freiberg. Actually, now I'm giving him some fame for it. Even though when we joke about it and say he has the worst one, that he has to take lessons by me and so on. There's some inside jokes or something, and we will probably laugh and he gets some mad or something. But I think his sprays are really good, and I think that some people are underrating it mostly because his role is, going to first and kill as many people as possible. But looking at how he sprays and how he controls it, it's really good. But sometimes he maybe needs to, move a little bit instead of just sitting down and spraying, which is really accurate, at least in CSGO wise. Like in 1.6, you can at least, in some ways, at least run and spray like I did, or, spray from a really far distance on. But in Go, you have to pretty much, at least nowadays, sit down and spray, actually get it really good. And I think he needs at least some learning in that areas to actually try to understand that if you stand up and you at least get to understanding how you spray standing instead of sitting all the time, I think he would be even a better player than he is actually right now.
Because there's another scenario in CSGO where you're like almost unique, which is that almost no one uses that auto sniper in pro games. Like a couple of people do. I think like Smiths does. No, Existence I think is the one who does from their team. Like a couple people use it sometimes. And so whenever you like 4 kills or something, I always hear people like, oh, it's so overpowered, they need to nerf that, but no one else uses it almost. Like in 1.6, you weren't an AWPer. I saw you AWP like once or twice ever. So why do you use a sniper rifle? What do you like about that gun? Why is it unique to you, do you think?
I don't know, to be honest, but I think why I started using out sniper was actually back then, I think it was before I tore open 2012. Yeah. And I was watching a game between, I think it was Copenhagen Wolves, the Danish team, or something like that. They were playing as a mixed online team. They were calling onliners back then, at least. There was a Swedish team. I think there was some player in that team. There was some train as well. They were under 12-3. The Swedish guy against this Danish team. And when they won the pistol round, first Antica rounds, I think one of the guys actually bought an out sniper, and I didn't really see it before back then. And I played it sometimes in practice, but I didn't really feel it was good enough. But then I saw this guy actually how he controlled it, and I was like, oh, this is actually a really good gun. Of course, it could be in some sense overpowered and so on, but how he controlled it, actually how he was holding positions and so on, at least on train, I was like, this gun actually could be like a better suit for me, at least when I want to be testing something new, And train is at least back then, was a map that when you go inside, you have like 2 or 3 trains in total that you can get covered by. And when you're using an out sniper, especially how I did it back then, it's a close distance for me, and every time you get 1 bullet on you, it's like 60 to 80 HP left. No, lost directly. You just need to 2-time shoot the guy and he's dead pretty much, and then you can focus on the next one. And back then, at least when I think about it, that's why the out sniper was really, really good, and still are, but in some sense are bad, but it's mostly because of one of the guy in that team, the Swedish team, that how he controlled it and so on. That's why I started to play that gun, pretty much.
When you first played with Forrest in Fnatic, then in SK, so you saw him for the last few years of 1.6, you actually got to play in the same server with him. Now you see him in CSGO, he's still one of the best players. Is he like the exact same style, exact same shooting style, everything from 1.6? Did something change with Forrest when he came to CSGO? Is he different at all in terms of style?
When you actually said that question, I think I actually started to think about this a week ago, something 2 weeks ago, and I think I see some slight different, but overall it feels like the goal of Forrest in a way. I think he still goes by the same mentality, of course he does, and that he's a good player, and if he's on form, he can pretty much win the game, I guess. And I believe that if he's having a really, really good game, he can win the game for us easily. And I don't really see a big difference from 1.6 to go. It's just small things, but I cannot really say out them and like say, yeah, it's this or that or so on, because I haven't really figured it out yet. But if you can come back in 2 or 3 weeks or stuff, I would probably figure out what it is really. But it's just like small things, and I don't really see a big difference at least, but it's just small things.
When I said before, I kind of like described like a lot of his teammates have talked about his motivation levels go up and down. And the reason why it sounds confusing is it almost sounded like when I talked to all these different teammates, like they didn't even know when it would go up and down. So it's not like he necessarily won every tournament and then he was like, oh, because I'm winning, like now I'm not as motivated, like now I won't play. And it's not like the opposite necessarily. Like if he was losing and he was like, oh, we don't have a chance to win, so I won't bother practicing. Like, how would you describe it? Do you have a sense now for when Forrest's motivation level is high, when it's low, and when you have to tell him to play? What do you think?
I think the difference is that he has a guy that's called Christopher, and he's a pain in the ass, and you just tell him to practice.
And he does?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is something I want to ask about then, because back in the day, everyone used to think the Fnatic core is DSN, Khan, Forrest, because they're the ones who've been in it for 5 years, you know. But since that period, it's actually been you and Forrest just together all these years, Fnatic, SK, NIP. Was there really a point in time, like when I was mentioning back with the thing with like, was Khan going to get kicked out? Were you going to get kicked out of Fnatic? Was there really ever a time when you and Forrest just said like, let's just play together forever, like we're such a good combo, or we're going to stick together, or you know, like we just have to stay in the same team, you know, that's what's going to make us win? Did you ever kind of like realize this together, or did you ever agree on it or anything like that?
Well, to be honest, me and Forrest relationship aren't like, you know, oh, we're the best friends or whatever, you know. I think we have the best professional friendship. Like both me and him talks a lot about things before, and like, you know, like problems in real life and whatever and so on. But we understood like pretty much that we're 2 good players that are feeling that we are some sense perfect match, and even though our playing style is so differently, and like no matter what, it will be good, you know, in a way. And but we haven't really discussed it and say like, yeah, we should stay together because of that or something. It felt just natural in a way, you know, and there's no really discussion about it. We just stick together and felt that why not go buy something that's good?
Because one question I always wondered about was the way it was initially described when you guys were leaving Fnatic was that actually all 3 of you left. It was you, Forrest, and Gux who left, and this was the famous trio that joined, like was the old Mad Fraggers from 2009, and then Gux came back in 2010, and so it sounded initially like, oh, those 3 will stick together. And I remember finding out that in SK, because of what happened with Gux leaving SK, like he couldn't come back to SK, okay, for whatever reason. Would it really have been? Would Gox have been involved in this as well? Do you think if he could have joined SK, you would have taken him to SK as well? Now he'd be in it. You think he would have stuck together like that? Was it similar with him?
I don't know, to be honest. Probably. I mean, we really like Gox. I don't think none of us really speak to him anymore though. But he's always been a really, really friendly guy, and I've always been looking up to him. And like, in what I mean in those sentences, like, if we go back to Fnatic beginning 2009, I thought always that he would be the guy to actually join first. You know, I would always pick him over me because I thought he was better at me at that time, and I still think in those areas when I think about 1.6. And by going back to when we left Fnatic and were supposed to join SK, and everyone knows pretty much that he was supposed to join, but then it was difficulty between him and SK, you know. And if he would be joining or joined the team back then and everything went that we wanted to be, and let's say the history was like exactly the same, but he was in the team, I would probably think that he would join us in CSGO though. But I think that his motivation went down because of the new game, and the scene was becoming, you know, less popular or less tournaments and so on, you know, in the end of 1.6. And but I didn't really even see him play CSGO in the beginning. I don't really think that he even tried it out, maybe sometimes, but that's about it. I don't think he felt the joy of the game like we did, at least in the beginning. So both yes and no on that question. I mostly no because of that he didn't really try it out, I think. And yes, if he would be staying with us, probably, yeah.
When you moved to CSGO, so this was like really, really early on, like you guys, there was like that news got leaked before 1.6 had even ended, that like the exact lineup that you were going to play in now. Well, everyone always thinks, oh, well, the reason they got Freeberg and Fifth Lauren is just because they were source guys and that would help them get it. That's like the storyline everyone thinks. But how did you really like pick those players, or how did that come about? Because what I always wondered was there never a temptation to just take that exact SK lineup and go into CSGO, or to take some of the other players, or to try a different, maybe hook up with some other players from 1.6? Was it always just this lineup and then you just figured it out early? How did it come about?
We can go back pretty much in the early, like how it actually went down, and going back to it, it was in the end of SK Gaming for me and Forrest, and our contract was running out, I think, or I don't know, it was more like SK didn't want to support us anymore, and it was perfect understanding, and everyone was pretty much agreeing on it, and that's about it. And I was remembering that I got contact with Niklas and Hedon, and I've been known Hedon for many years, and I was borrowing actually one of their computers, Heat Gaming computers, and because of playing Go, because they knew that I was playing it, and they pretty much offered me directly to say like, yeah, we wanted to make a team, and who would you play with and so on. And then of course I wanted to bring Forrest with me, and I was thinking about some SK player that we were playing with, and I was thinking about Delpan, but at that time Delpan wasn't thinking about playing it at all. And Robin was like, is there any future in CSGO, blah blah blah, you know, and it was so stable at that time, and it was a huge risk by everyone to even go into the scene because there was no tournaments, you know, or no safety net, or what you can say about it. So both of them was, you know, pretty much gone indirectly, and I think they regret it in the end, at least when they look about it. And FaZe was still like, yeah, I want to play, but for me personally, I think it felt like that he didn't really take the time that we other was doing for it. Like me and Forrest, we were playing gathers all the time with CS Source players and so on, and that's where we met for Fifth Lauren and Freiburg, and there was PTK and Vipan, and there was a lot of like Source players like Haji or Steel, or, you know, then the list is long. At least when you think about how CSGO was in the beginning, it was like all the names. You were playing with everyone pretty much. But somehow, I don't know why, but I get the contact with Exist between that. And but he was playing CSGO back then as well, but mostly because I didn't know him back then. We were just saying hi on tournaments, you know, and that's about it, you know. And me and Forrest didn't really know the guy. And I think it was a both risk from both sides, mostly because he was playing Fnatic then, you know, he was winning a lot of tournaments and so on, and I think I just dropped the name, asked the question pretty much like, do you want to play with me and Forrest in CSGO? And I think he got some time to think about it, and he said directly yes, and it was perfect for us, because we think that he seems like a guy that he wanted to put game hours into CSGO, and he's still young and he wanted to do that, go to the next game. So we pretty much had 3 players in the beginning, and then we were looking like, yeah, we should like look for more players. FaZe maybe we could be one, but we still didn't know a 5th. And then I remember like Niklas or Hedon, I don't remember who it was, but I think it was Niklas saying like, but couldn't we do like a Source 1.6 team? And I think everyone was like kind of quiet and like, okay, because we didn't know the Source scene and so on, and there was a natural thing. It was nothing like saying that, but then we understood like, yeah, it could be good because of the Source engine and so on, and of course that would always be us giving us advantage because we don't know anything, and that's the truth, But then it felt like natural way to go actually, because of course of the engine, and then we felt like the Source scene are pretty open to everything, and especially Swedish players like Fiffler and Freiberg and others were like open to us, and they were taking us into gathers and mixes and cups and whatever, they were so open to us directly. And I heard that Niklas was saying like Fiffler is a good in game. He was playing in my team before that I was doing. And we asked Fiffler pretty much directly like, you want to join our team because you could be our in-game leader or something like that. And he was like, yeah, I can do that because I'm moving back to Sweden. And then we got the other problem, like who's our 5th, And we thought about FaZe, Freiberg, and someone else. I don't remember who it was, but I think it was 3, or maybe it was just them. I think it was just them, yeah. And I think we just ended up with Freiberg mostly because both Robin and Adam was living together in Dublin back then, and both of them was like thinking about moving back, and we were like, yeah, we need a core back in Sweden, and like someone who actually can stay close to each other so we get to know each other on personal levels, and boot camp as much as possible. And that's pretty much how we actually ended up with the NIP. It was like a chance for everyone, like a huge risk that everyone did, and just like, let's see how it goes pretty much. And I think everyone back in then, like at least the players, was thinking like, we could probably win some tournaments, like that's about it, and let's see how it goes. Maybe Go will explode or will not or something, but we did take the risk and see what happens.
Because I have a question about Exist, which is that a lot of people forget that Fifflaren used to be in-game leader at the beginning of NIP, and so they just remember when you were winning everything, oh, it was Exist who was the in-game leader. And so if you think that way, it makes it seem really obvious as to why Exist would join OK, because when you guys were successful in Fnatic, Khan was famous, like he had like more of a loose style, OK? Not like MTW, AVE style, like everything super, more loose, OK? But that works obviously in Fnatic when you have Get Right and Forest. It seems to work better doing that style. And so people look at CSGO when Exist was the in-game leader and they think, oh, he did a similar thing there. He had like a similar loose style. That's why they were able to be so good. But he wasn't the in-game leader initially. How did they decide to have Exist be the in-game leader, and how did that style come about? Did you have a similar idea, like this is how it's going to work best for us if we like have a more loose role? Like how did it decide? Because it sounds almost as though you sort of had Exist and you thought like you could do like a Khan type role. What do you think?
The main idea was to have Fifflaren in-game leader indirectly when we started the team, and then we had him in the beginning. Like we went to Valencia the first tournament, but I think we had a discussion, everyone, and we felt like that he was so strict with tactics and he was holding some players back, and they didn't really use their skill in the end. And Fifflaren was like, yeah, okay, why, let's try it. And Exist was like, yeah, I could be in game leader. And he was in game leader in Fnatic, so we were like, okay, why not try it out? And it just ended up like that, pretty much. It was no really big issue or something like that. We were just like, yeah, let's try it out. And it just ended up with Exist being in game leader for 1.5 years.
Because people think since when NIP was winning everything in a row, it looked like there's not like super in-depth tactics here. It looks like there's simple tactics that work, but then the players are just like Forrest outskills the guy he's versus, you win like the 1v2 or whatever. And so everyone used to think back then, oh, NIP's just higher skill level than everyone else. Whereas we've seen now, there's players now like Shox or someone who is just as good as players in NIP. So do you think really back then that you guys were above people in terms of skill level in the first like 6 months or so? Or was there something else? What do you think?
I just think that we put in more hours than everyone else. That's about it. Like, we were the real, in a way, first team to actually go 100% on Go. We were the only team that actually was serious about it and like going all in pretty much. And we were practicing so much in the beginning. Like, we were practicing against teams that we play like 100 times per week, and there was not so many teams in the beginning. We were just playing because we wanted to be pretty much the best in it directly. And I just think still is the only answer to the question is that we played the most CSGO in the beginning, and that's why we were so successful in the beginning.
Because one of the things is, when we think about like the first teams to actually beat you weren't very games, obviously. The real ones to beat you were these two different Virtus Pro lineups. Yeah. So there's the one at the Star Ladder, and then the other one was at the EMS Summer, I think it was. Yeah. So these two teams that came along, it seemed like, oh, that makes sense that they'd be the ones to beat you, because they also were just like filled with aimers, and they played kind of a, I don't want to say a random style, because they have a style obviously, but not exactly, they weren't like very games, for example. They weren't very strict like that. What did you think of these first two teams in Virtus Pro? Because I always thought if they'd have kept those lineups together, maybe they would have been like a top team, but then they just beat you and then they split up almost immediately after. What do you think of like those being the first teams to beat you? Did it make sense?
I think personally the Variants would be the first, because they were also one of the teams actually putting so much hours into the game. And I'm kind of surprised actually, in a way, they didn't beat us first, but I guess I'm happy for it in the end. I think the only reason why Virtus Pro was beating us first is that we played them the most, because they saw how we were playing, understanding the game, and I think we were one of the teams in the beginning actually giving them the hours that was needed, because they changed to CSGO kind of late as well, but they were the team that actually involved the fastest, if you ask me. Especially, Dosia and Fox, and I think it was Kusher, and every one of them, was still in 1.6 thinking when they was starting Go, but they started to understand when we were playing the game, like there's a completely new thing to actually understand of the game instead of the classic 1.6 style. And we were playing against them so many times, at least in the beginning, that they actually understood how the game was played and how we were doing it and like so on. So I think actually we gave them pretty much the advantage in the beginning. At least they understand how you play the game. Like, for example, when we play in Fnatic against Navi, we play them so much in the beginning, and then somehow they are the best team in the world, and they stop practicing as us.
In 1.6, like I described before, when you were playing with Khan, even with Roban to a degree, there was more of like a loose style to the tactics, and that obviously works really good for you and Forest. But when I think historically, one of the few teams who always did well against you and Forest was MTW, who had Dave, and he was famous for like super in-depth and trying to anti-strat this guy and know exactly where he's going to be and we'll catch him there and stuff. And I know like that used to frustrate you. Like, he's one of the people you didn't like to play against because it was like almost annoying to you. Like, oh, this guy's going to he's going to know I'm going to be there and he's going to set something up. Whereas other people maybe just play more loose against you as well. Is it like that when you play Existence at all? Is he a similar sort of person? Am I characterizing it correctly? Is he a bit like an Ave type person? What do you think of him?
Like, mostly because I come from a 1.6 background and so on, I could say that Existence is a copycat of Ave. I've seen him with a laptop like Ave did, and I understand they have a bunch of papers ready, and so on. So for me, it's similar teams, I guess, in a way. They're similar, like, thinking how the game should be played and so on. But however, I think the Existence are more, strict, like even harder than A was, and like how things are supposed to be played. And I guess that's why I hate to play against them, because they are looking over more and more of how the players are playing and so on and such.
Is there anything different about Titan or Very games when you play them in terms of like tactical stuff? Like, does it feel like they make you rotate more, or are they good at surprising? What is their strength in terms of tactics and stuff like that and style?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't really have a real answer on that. Like, oh yes, it's that one. I think it feels like like for example the question you did before with 3 different lineups, it feels like they're trying to me be more impulsive in rounds now than it was in the beginning. And that's about it. I think they're trying to fool your enemy faster than you actually think they are, you know. Like, let's say for example a new queue, a fake yard, and then you give someone to say like I need help, for example, because I hold yard as CT, you know. And that's guy rotating, but then all of a sudden they're attacking ramp, for example. They're trying to be faster on that, feels like. They're trying to go by a standard default round, it feels like. But they're always trying to mix it up to say like, okay, we're doing this one, but it's gonna go directly up B1 or a ramp or underground, you know. They're trying to make it faster so the team aren't really reacting to it. And that's the only thing I really understand of their playing, pretty much.
Because when we see Nip, when you were winning everything, you could see that it seemed like part of why you were able to stick with the loose style is because you guys didn't need to change anything. You could just keep doing what you're doing and you're winning, and everyone else has to react to you. They have to figure out, what do we change in our lineup, or how do we change our style to be more like Nip? You saw a lot of people trying to copy the Nip style, whereas when Very Games then won a few tournaments in a row, and now they're like even with you perhaps at the top, now it feels like Nip is trying to react to Very Games a little, because you were saying Very Games maybe changed their style to be more like Nip. Is changing to Fifth Laren now, and you even doing in-game leader before and changing your style now, are you guys becoming a bit more like Very Games? What do you think?
No, I think it's more of like I guess like you were saying, that we were staying with the same play style and we were staying by the same rounds. We just wanted to give other people the chance to actually give new ideas to the game, and like maybe this could work, you know, or something like that. And that's why we've been trying out with 3 different in-game leaders, I guess, in a way.
Obviously, I'm not in the team, so I don't know what people are thinking in the team. But if I look at Nip now, even if Very Games won those tournaments before DreamHack, and then you finally beat them at DreamHack, to me, I look at Nip and I go like, oh, I wouldn't change anything. I'd keep it all this, obviously change simple tactics like you do every tournament anyway, but I'd keep it all the same. I'd keep the leadership the same. I'd keep everything in the team the same, and I'd just play every tournament, because in the long run, I think I'm going to like win tournaments. I'm going to always come top 3. I'm always going to come first, second, third, maybe even win the big majors. Was there really anything drastic that had to be changed after DreamHack or after losing to Very Games? Wasn't the team still good enough to still be the best in the world?
I just think that we needed to change our game plan, pretty much. It was not that we're changing the tactics overall or how we're supposed to play the game. It's more like giving a new ideas to the tactical map, if you can say it like that. It's just more about that.
One of the things that it's obvious to look at when Very Games became good and won tournaments finally is adding shocks. Because he was always like good when he was in like LDLC or whatever that team, or Imaginary or whatever the one he was in. He was like a good player there, but it's not like he was like the best in the world or whatever. But then you saw when they started to win tournaments in Very Games, that's when he was really hitting his peak, it seemed, and there was like skill. Have I like just confused them winning tournaments with him being really good? Did he really like become the best player or become like as good as you and Forrest at that time? What do you think?
I think he's been always the same player, no matter what team he's been playing with. I think the only differently is like they know exactly in and out everyone together. They've been playing swords in different lineups and so on, so they know how the game are supposed to be played, and it's easier to go back to your roots, if you can say like that. Like when we took in Gux again, for example, in Fnatic, it's always easier to go back to your roots to actually start winning again, because you know exactly how the player are thinking and so on. And when they were playing with, for example, RPK and Kenes was the new guy. They knew how RPK was playing because he was playing in that team for years. But Kenes was a new guy and he was really good, but he was still unstable, at least in the beginning. And then they changed RPK for Scream, and Kenny was still pretty unstable, if you ask me. Even though today he's a really good player, there's no really bashing on him. I don't want him to be angry on me, but he's been involved in like a big player, if you can go in different subject there. But like when you have that core that you've been knowing for years, because they played against Scream and Shock's been playing with Scream for years, and even though with Very Games in some areas as well, they know each other pretty much in and out, and they know what it's needed for actually to be successful. And I think that's why they are a perfect match, if you can say it like that, because they've been training for many years and they know everything in and out about each player. That's about it.
Because the thing I always wonder about, I like to do like a hypothetical exercise in my mind when I think about players. So to me, I'll probably never fully understand why like Neo and Trace aren't that good in CSGO. Like you can say stuff like they're not as motivated or whatever, but it seems like something about their style or their skills didn't quite translate over okay. So I can accept that someone who's really good in CSGO is good in their own unique way, because if Neo can't be good in CSGO, okay, Neo was amazing in 1.6, but maybe there's a different type of skill in CSGO. So I can accept they can be really good. But then I always try to think backwards as well. So I think like, okay, if we went back in time and we took Shoxy now, and we put him in 1.6 and he played for whatever team would be the right team, you know, and he really did practice as much as he could in 1.6, would Shoxy really be like a Neo type person in 1.6 like he is in CSGO?
Actually, Shoxy played 1.6 before.
Okay.
And what I understood, that was a short period of time. I haven't really asked him because I know him and about it, but what I understood, he was really good at it. But that's about it. I don't know what team and so on. I think he could be a really good player. The only problem that I see is that France has always been struggling with before, you know, like Emulate was really good, but somehow they became not so good, you know. And they surprised us in winning WCD and came second at GameGu, and in SWC they play really, really well, and you know, and so on. But it feels like the normal problem, you know, like Real from Norway, the only good player, if you can say like that still. Yeah. Like, which one would he be playing with though, Soxy? That's the only problem I see, though. Would he play with the Emulate team? Or would he play with a Strikers team or something else, you know? I don't know. I can really, you know, see that. I can see him become a really, really good player, but would he win tournaments? And would we which teams, you know? That's the only issue I see.
Because I wanted to ask along those lines, since you're one of the few people who was amazing at 1.6 and CSGO, could you give me like 2 examples? I want someone in CSGO now who maybe just because of their style in CSGO or what they're really good at in CSGO, you think like, okay, this guy didn't play 1.6 and maybe he's a Source player. He would have been really good in 1.6. Like I think his style would have fit. And then I want one from 1.6 who never go. And you think like that guy, actually he would have had the style for CSGO. So I want one from each if you can.
Oh, that's a hard one. I think if you can go by 1.6, because that's closest and what I can really see directly, that would probably be some Danish player, like probably Wimp or not Sunde, maybe Sunde or Sonic. I think one of those 3 could be really, really good in Source.
Why?
Because I think Sonic is one of those players like similar to me that I always practice, or everyone in that MTW team was like, at least in 2008 they were practicing like maniacs, you know. But I think Sonic would be really, really good in Go if we put in the hours, pretty much. I don't really see him like having a problem to actually be really good though in Go. Wimp could be the same thing, but Wimp finished pretty early though, you know, he quit pretty early, if you can say early.
Sure.
And Sunde, the only problem would be his motivation, I think. That's the only, like, I could see directly saying like that. I could probably give you a whole list later on, but right now that's what I can think about. And Source, I don't know, mostly because I don't know the scene that all.
So when we talked before about like one of the things I thought was interesting, okay, was when I said like, do you like about how you sometimes got mad if you won but you played badly, or if you played well but you lost, okay, in this sort of a scenario where it's like the 2 conditions weren't there that you needed to feel really happy about the game. One of the things that some people maybe don't understand, who don't really try hard to be good at something, is that if you try really, really hard, then just having some success like isn't enough, because you're trying to get like the maximum, okay. So if you win 1 tournament, like a bad player, they'd be like, wow, I won a tournament, that's amazing, like I don't care if I win the next 2, like I won this one, that's okay. But if you know that you're good enough to win all 3, then if you win 1 and you lose the next 2, you're going to be thinking about the 2 you lost, you know, because that's like a winner mentality. Yeah. Well, in CSGO, it was easy to be happy in the early days when you won everything. And even if you lost, your team always came second, okay? I think you only once ever dropped out of the top 4. So you were always really close, always doing so well in terms of accomplishment. But now you have this weird scenario where after winning all that and all that money, we have these majors now in CSGO, and there's only been one so far, and you guys didn't win it. And so you actually had a chance to do something you didn't even do in 1.6, where in 1.6, you once won $50,000 when you won that IEM3 Global Finals. But after that, it was the era when there wasn't as much prize money. So even if you won the tournament, you got like 20,000 or 15,000 or something. Now, with these majors, you have a chance to win like 100,000 in one go and like a big major or whatever. Is this still something like accomplishment that you have to manage? Like if you won every tournament in CSGO now, except the majors, could you even be satisfied in any way?
No. I would trade all the other tournaments for one big major, I guess, or more. Like,
so if I can take you back in time now, beginning of 2013, I'll tell you, like, I'll give you a deal, okay? I'll tell you, like, you can pick like 3 tournaments that you win. You have to lose all the rest to Virtus Pro, Very Games, Navi. But I'll let you pick 3 small tournaments, and then you can just win DreamHack Winter. That would be worth it for all the tournaments you won?
No, I guess not. I don't know. It's a tricky question if you ask me, because like a player will always be reminded more of how many majors won instead of a really, really good player that won a lot of smaller one, but like he didn't really in the end, win the major one, And I've been lucky enough to actually win 2 of those, like in 1.6, like, or 3, I don't know, remember, like ESWC and IEM, for example. I've been really lucky with that, and I'm really happy with it. And I hate to actually remembering, like, when you were so close to actually win like WCD gold or something similar, and IEM, for example, again, that's what I hate about playing. Like when you're so close to winning the major and you're like gonna be like, this is gonna be making me happy for, let's say, 3 months, this is gonna make me like finally all the practice, whatever, putting it, it counted, they gave you the result you wanted, and then you like finish on losing and like you're almost there, you're almost there, and then you feel like, well, was it worth it? It's always that thinking coming directly. But so yes and no in that question. Like I would trade something to win a big major or more majors, let's say every smaller ones, and then win like all the big ones. Yes or no. It's a 50-50, I guess. You have to think about the whole thing about it, and I think I would never really have a straight answer saying yes or no, but it's equal, I guess, in a way.
To kind of like close the interview, I have a topic to ask about, okay, which is like a life outside of CS. And so the way I want to set it up is like this. When I used to first do like writing and interviews and stuff, I used to just like free for all style, like just if I had some good questions, then the interview would be good. If I didn't, then it wouldn't be so good. Okay. Yeah. And over years to make it better, I had to like learn work ethic, okay, like research or think more about it or like develop style. And so by putting in lots of work, then I could see like results over time. Like, and I could see like, oh, working hard like really does make you better at stuff, and it's also more fun. You see how you're improving. Yeah. And so I think to myself, if like I left doing esports work, whatever I did next, so for example, I might like want to be a comic book writer or something, okay, whatever I did, I'd probably apply the same mentality, okay, like you got to improve and you got to work, I'd do the same thing. So I actually think if for some reason I had to leave, I'd probably still be able to like enjoy whatever I was doing, because I'd do the same approach, okay. Yeah. If Get Right left CS tomorrow, like, okay, you're a gamer now and you love CS as a game. If you left CS tomorrow and you did some sort of real life job or something that had nothing to do with computers, would you be just as dedicated? Would you be like going harder all the time? Do you think you'd be the same sort of person in that sense?
Yes, I would be, because like what I was learned by when I was growing up, like, and it's pretty much from my parents, like it's the simple one, like everyone else has heard 100 times, like do what you love the most, or like if you don't think it's fun, don't do it, and so on. And if I find something that's gonna be suited for me and something that I like really, really, really care about, I would go for it, even though it would make me like, poorer or, something else, I would always go for that, because I know back in the day, like, or every end of the day, like I will go back like saying like, yeah, tomorrow is work, but this work rocks, it's so fun to go to. And that's what I will probably do. You know, like when I'm finished with the gaming, I will go with something that I really, really want to do, and I will pretty much go for the same thing like I did in 1.6 and go. Like I would do whatever it takes to actually be really good at that job.
As the final question, I want to just do a hypothetical one. So it's like a light-hearted question. So aliens come to the planet Earth.
I know this.
Yeah. And they kill everyone else in NIP. So only Get Right's left. Because they're just a fan of Get Right. And they kill everyone else in NIP. And they say, like, we want to create the new NIP. So we have to pick, Get Right has to pick other players from CSGO. Like, he has to pick the player who could play like Forest, the player who could play like Freeburg, the player who could play like Fifth Line. Which other CSGO players could do it? Or be the closest, you know?
I don't even have an answer on this. I lost all my 4 teammates.
Yeah.
Why are you so cruel to me? I don't want to lose them.
You get something out. So who's the closest?
I got really close friends in gaming, but no comment, seriously. No, but like, okay, I would pick. I don't know, to be honest. Like, I cannot really figure out really, like, there's some players I could be like, could play with.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really fill up every spot if you ask me like that. That's the only answer. I could say some names though, but I don't think you would probably end up with everyone though. Like, I'm always been like interesting to see how good Twist is, the player from SK or LGB now and so on. And like Dennis and Olaf M. But that's the thing, that's the biggest issue, because I cannot really feel like an in-game leader or a support player and so on. I can only go by players that I like enjoying watching, and that's like Olaf M, Dennis, Twist, like other good players like Edward from Navi, and like Guardian in some sentence. What more, I enjoy watching Soxy, for example. Like, the list could be very long, but that's those players I could probably play with. But then the only main issue is like who's gonna be in game, who's gonna be support and so on. Like, I can only drop names and so on. Like, that's about it. I cannot really finish up a lineup.
Okay. Who do you want to thank or say hello to at the end of the interview?
Thank you for doing this interview, to actually have the time to actually do it here in Stockholm. Thank you for that. And to all my fans, family, friends, my girlfriend Anna, NIP, our owner and so on, our sponsors, DLCS, Telia, Gunnar Optics, and those are coming. I don't know which one are coming, but the other ones, and my personal one, esports venture.
Tack så mycket.
Tack.
Like, okay, any newer like CSGO player who maybe was too young to play in 1.6, like this guy would have been good too?
This is gonna be a more troll joke thing.
Okay.
Mostly because I'm gonna hype up one of my teammates, and that's gonna be Freiberg. Because Freiberg was saying that he always gonna be the best 1.6 player if he went to dad.
Really?
Yeah, and so on.
He believes that?
Nah, it's more like he's joking. But I'm gonna give him the credit to that, and saying that he would be a really, really good 1.6 player if he played that instead.
Okay.